Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Festival of Enterprise. I am Alex Chisnell. Good morning to you all. Hope you're having a good start to your day already. Those of you who've been with us since the start back in March, thank you for joining us once again. And any new viewers, I welcome you as well. So today I'm joined by Tony and Neil. So Neil is head of sales at Kuiper Tech, and we've got Neil with us as well, as I say, and we are talking, is your antivirus enough? And we're going to have a full presentation slide deck here from Tony Roberts from Panda Security. So how are you both doing today, chaps?
Good, thank you. Cheers, Alex.
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Whereabouts are you both in the country right now?
I'll let you speak first, Tony.
Yep. So I'm down in sunny Brighton. So
Nice.
The sun is out today, but hopefully I might need to close my window actually because the seagulls no doubt will turn up and start making noise.
Annoying. How about yourself, Neil? Whereabouts are you?
Yeah, so it is sunny Birmingham, but right in the centre. But unfortunately, I don't have the pleasure of being able to look out of a window and seeing any sea or seagulls. So, but no, it's good. Thank you.
Nice. Further along the coast from yourself, Tony, in Poole in Dorset, where it is equally sunny and very nice.
Nice.
So everybody, look, thanks for joining us. If you're joining us on social media as well, we are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you'd like to come and join us live here, make it a little bit more of an interactive experience, then just go to festivalofenterprise.co.uk, where you can register and join us. If you are taking advantage of the nice weather and happen to be on the beach watching this on social, then that's absolutely fine. June and Ben are posted up. June is in mid Wales and Ben is in the West Midlands. So let us know where you are, post up. And the easiest way here, everybody, to interact with the webinar today, if you've got a question for Tony, Neil, myself, is post up in the chat box that you see in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. And we've also got the ask a question button, which only I get to see, which I can then position to the chaps afterwards. But that's literally it from me with regards to housekeeping for today's webinar. But use this opportunity, as I say, if you'd like to comment in the box, if you'd like to connect, pop your LinkedIn profile in there. We'll be doing that at a normal live event. If you just like to post up like June and Ben have done and let us know where you're from, that's pretty cool too. So look, without further ado, I am going to hand over to Neil first, who is head of sales at Kuiper Tech, to tell us a little bit more about today's webinar.
Thank you, Alex, and good morning, and thank you for all of you joining both Kuiper Tech and Panda, which is a Watchguard company, on this Bounce Back live webinar. The question we're asking today is, your antivirus enough? We'd first like to say I appreciate the effort the team at the Festival of Enterprise are helping us put together these initiatives like this, and we hope that you get a huge benefit from this. To quickly introduce myself, and who is also present on this meeting, I am Neil Jelly, Head of Sales for Kuiper, and a big welcome to Tony Roberts, the SE Sales Engineer for Watchguard Panda. So Tony will be leading the webinar, and I will disappear shortly just to let him do his thing, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to give you a little brief introduction to Kuiper. As I mentioned earlier, I'm based in Birmingham. We are a Midlands-based IT solution provider, and our headquarters are based in Birmingham, but we also have a further service centre based up in Mansfield. Kuiper itself, we call ourselves a total solution provider, and our tagline is universally embracing IT solutions. It's really that because we do act as a broadline provider in every aspect of IT, whether that be hardware provision, cyber security, cloud computing, managed services, or acting as your IT service desk. So things like telecommunications, internet and mobile, and also more recently, we've just launched a brand of digital signage called Kuiper Lumin for commercial display solutions. We really do truly believe our actions do the talking, so we don't like just to stand up here and preach about how amazing we think we are. We let you guys be the judge of that. So please visit our website, have free to look at some of the testimonials about what our customers have said about us, and I think that'll give you a true representation of who we are as people and how we work with our customers. Over the next few days, we'll be great to follow up with you, and hopefully after this session. If you have any questions, we'll get back to you with those. We understand, the current climate is difficult, but we want to talk to you and see how we can help and how Kuiper can help solve any problems you may have. So really do hope you enjoy the webinar today and you find that both informative and educational. And as mentioned, there'll be a Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I will now pass you on to our guest speaker, Watchguard Panda, Tony Roberts.
Thank you, Neil. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for jumping on the session this morning, or afternoon or evening, depending where you are. I hope you're all safe and well. So to kick off with, I just wanted to introduce myself. So my name is Tony Roberts. I'm one of the technical SEs at Watchguard Panda Security. I've been with the business for some years, 14 years plus. So I see a lot of technological changes throughout that time. Now, if you've never heard of Panda, there's a few things to be aware of. We've been in the cyber endpoint business for 3 decades. So we've been around for a very long time. All our technologies are homegrown. We've developed it all internally. And over those 30 years, we've had lots of firsts. So we've always been inspired by technology. We've had lots of evolution. We've had products come and go throughout that time. And it stood us in really good stead. But what we've seen over the time is an evolution of not just technology and products, but the threats being used out there to potentially breach businesses. And we need to adapt and react to that accordingly. So we've evolved to where we are today. We have our flagship product, Adaptive Defense 360. And during today's session, I'm going to talk about some of the technology out there, but also practically. We'll actually jump into the console and we'll take a look at some of this information being pulled in from the endpoints and how the actual technology can help protect your business. But first off, how bad is the situation out there? So obviously, we see it in the media all the time. We see issues occurring. In only the last few months, we saw back in July that Garmin fell foul of a ransomware attack with resources being made inaccessible, resulting in applications not being available to users and the apps. Some of those users were actually pilots who relied on the Garmin database in order to be able to plan out their routes. The attack, or the attackees, were requesting $10 million to give them back access to their data, which is quite a significant amount. Did they pay it? Probably not. Hopefully not. But that's the situation we're in. Ransomware is a massive issue, and we need to be able to protect against it. The Newcastle University recently also was a victim of an attack. This resulted in multiple services being affected. One of those impacts was students being told to not come into the campus for the rest of the week. So massive downtime, especially in this situation where everyone's been, in lockdown, everything's come to a grinding halt. Try and get back to some sort of normality, and this sort of thing happens. We need to try and prevent it. And then Carnival Cruise Lines got hit. These are just some examples. You look on the web and you're going to find situations happening all the time. But with these guys, this cruise giant, which owns 10 cruise lines and is currently the world's biggest travel leisure business, faced a breach and loss of an undefined volume of data. Again, it's just another situation which is just sad, and we just don't want to see people in these situations. And then, if you remember, WannaCry, a big one. Now, this happened back in May 2017 and was a big headline hitter, and we learned a lot of lessons about this situation. It cost the NHS alone £92 million as a result of 19,000 appointments being cancelled, with an estimation of about 150 countries being affected by this crypto. and an estimated value of damages in the region of $4 billion. Yeah, that's massive amounts of money. So we know the situation exists, but how we can prevent becoming a victim and a statistic. So first of all, there's two actions I want people to take away, if anything. Patch, patch, patch. If you've got an IT estate, make sure you're patching. WannaCry could have been prevented or reduced because an update was released 2 months prior before it hit network systems en masse, and that could have been prevented if people had correct patch policies in place. So patching is really important. Another topic is RDP. Now, if you as your business are offering out any kind of remote desktop services and you're publishing that directly to the web, so threat actors can be sniffing around your network, they identify your IP, start banging on the doors of the RDP server, and basically they brute force their way in. And this happens more times than I care to imagine. You need to switch off RDP. If you're using it and you've got nothing sitting between your LAN and the web, it's only a matter of time. So I recommend you assess that immediately. Now, there's ways that you can monitor and manage that kind of activity going on. If you've got security auditing going on for failed logins on the RDP server, you've got network traffic monitoring going on within your firewall, you may already have some technology in place that gives you the ability to see how bad the situation might be. But really, if you're using RDP, disable the direct access, enforce VPN connections before you can RDP in. So it's an encrypted tunnel in first from the endpoint to the server, or implement, as well as multi-factor authentication, MFA. So you're preventing the business or reducing the risk to the business of people getting in. Because what happens with RDP is once people get in, they'll start acting as an admin account within the network, start performing reconnaissance, and once they're in, and it's just a matter of time. So let's prevent. Security is about the layers and preventing these threat actors or the threats from getting into the endpoint. So let's consider the technologies that can be implemented to prevent us from becoming another statistic. So what is EPP and EDR? So we know this industry is full of acronyms. Everywhere we look, there's new, old acronyms all over the place. But let's clarify what these two are. So EPP stands for Endpoint Protection Platform. This is basically protection that is resident on your endpoints, your devices, your Windows machines, your server machines, machines that you're operating on. And this is typically a protection that contains a suite of technology to help protect the endpoint, the user, from malicious actions. It uses traditional methods. EPP is traditional AV. Now, I'll come back to this and do a bit of a comparison between the two. But really, EPP has been around for a while and doesn't really stack up to the threat that we face in day-to-day operations. So what you need to do is consider EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response, or NGAV, Next Generation Antivirus. Now, EDR has previously been a separate market to antivirus, but in recent years, it has been necessary for the two markets to merge. Now, Gartner defined EDR as solutions that record endpoint system level behaviors and events. For example, user behavior, processes, network events, and store this information either locally or in a centralized database. And we use behavior analytic techniques and then use to continually search the data to identify early indications of breaches, like threat actors working within the network, and to rapidly respond to those attacks. These tools also help with rapid investigation into the scope of an attack and provide response capabilities. In essence, EDR leverages forensic data off the endpoints, enabling us to identify or mitigate attacks in real time or historically. So EDR is very different compared to EPP. So how does that stack up, EPP versus EDR? So EPP, and I'm sorry that I use acronyms, Endpoint Protection Platform, still has its place. It's been around for many years. Includes some core technologies, specifically things like remediation methods to clean and remove, infected systems, but it has its limitations. Now, those being typically only be able to detect malware that is already known about. This is achieved by EPP using techniques like signature and heuristic or pattern matching. So it will sit on a system, it will see a file, and it matches that file to an already known piece of malware. It only detects what it knows about. It also has some capabilities of identifying suspicious activity in the endpoint, but this results in more effort from the admins to identify and determine whether these suspicious items are good or bad. But it leaves everything else alone. The unknown. This is where all those problems stem from. We need a technology that resolves this. And this is where EDR comes into place. Compared to AV, which relies on a database of known malware variants or behaviors, it scans the endpoint to detect and remediate the known malware. So in other words, the main difference between these two types of traditional technologies is one is aimed at threats we know about, traditional antivirus or EPP, whilst the other is aimed at threats we do not know about, EDR. As a result, by bringing the two together, we become completely visible and hopefully ultimately in control of what's going on within our estates. So to be clear, so remember, EPP is in essence limited to its ability to fully protect, as it's mainly focused on known things that we pulled in. And when we look at security vendors, how this operates is you've got honeypots, you've got sample submissions. They take all these unknowns and they add them to signatures. And these signatures are typically delivered on a daily basis or via a cloud delivery platform, but detecting the unknown, the known. Whereas EDR is bridging that gap. We're coming full circle now. So I'll explain some of the contextual understandings of what goes on within EDR and give you a practical example of that. But when we look at two technologies, like I mentioned before, EPP and EDR have been traditionally separate markets. But here at Panda, we've been evolving to a hybrid product suite. And we've been doing this for many years. We have a solution called Adaptive Defense 360, which consists of both EPP and EDR in a single agent on the endpoint. So will it ever happen to you? You think you have antivirus in place. You may already have EDR technology, you may not. But will it ever happen to you? Now, obviously, we see in the media the big cases, the big blue chips, the large estates that fall foul to these situations. But it's not specific about those sort of businesses. Any business can fall victim to malware. Mrs. Jones, in a 2-user environment in the network, they get email, they browse the internet, and their data is just as vulnerable as a larger organization. Everyone is at risk. So will it ever happen to you? So there's one really interesting portal that Watchguards populate, and that is the Secplicity Threat Landscape. So I'm going to show you a website here quickly. Bear me 1 second. I'll drag this over for you. Okay. Everyone's got access to this. Within this portal, there's a section called Threat Landscape. Now, in here, we've got lots of telemetry data. This data is being pulled in from the fireboxes. So if you understand who Watchguard are a security vendor who recently acquired Panda to be part of their security portfolio. So Watchguard are famous for their UTMs, their firewall appliances. And this threat dashboard is an indication of, real time, what the threat situation is out there. So in the last month, we're looking at globally 6.5 million malware attacks. Okay, so the fireboxes on the gateways, so this is stuff coming from the outside into a business's network. There's been 6.5 million detections just on the appliances we've got out there. Now, out of those detections, if I scroll down a little bit, 49% were 0-day. Targeted attacks, APTs, the unknown. So it's these unknowns that really we need next generation EDR technology to be able to detect and react to. Now, we're looking globally here. If we just focus on the UK specifically, so up here, just put in United Kingdom, that 0-day ramps up massively, 87%. So maybe we're being targeted by a state-sponsored attack. But when we look at it globally, we are significantly higher at potentially being a victim of a 0-day. And this is like, these numbers fluctuate, they go up and down, but it's a really interesting statistic to see how bad potentially a situation can be. Do we need to improve our antivirus using traditional based methods? Absolutely. We need to accommodate new layers, because security is all about the layers to protect the business. So what makes us different? We have a classification service. When we talk about EDR, we have a classification service that identifies and classifies 100% of identified running processes in the endpoint. It's a proven approach to significantly reduce potential security breaches. And with our native event login, we can enrich the data being used by data analyst teams. Now, threat actors never stop. Malware is evolving. And with that, we need to adapt our technology. So we do this by assessing the situation out there, adding in new algorithms to ensure that we can address the techniques being used by the threat actors. And also by obtaining the endpoint telemetry, we can go even further by feeding this data into SIEM platforms that are used by threat hunters. So SIEM, another acronym, Security Information and Event Management. And because we can capture all of this data with EDR technology, it allows us to address the unknown. Firewall-less attacks, malware-less attacks, these are on the rise. We need the ability to identify and react to whatever technique is being utilized in attempting to breach a system. Ransomware, it's the big buzzword. It's a horrible word. It's been around for years. It is not going away because it's all about the bottom line. If they can get fiscal return from breaching a system, holding people to businesses to ransom, getting money, big money out of people, they're going to keep on going. So endpoint cybersecurity, can no longer be based on one technology. We need to embrace the evolution of EPP, EDR, plus other technologies as well. It doesn't end there, to protect our businesses. Now, when you see how much data is required for EDR to be efficient, capable of delivering detections, telemetry, it's quite mind-boggling. When we look at Adaptive Defense 360, we have 30 different telemetry events that we populate with information. We get on average 4,000 events per machine daily. And we are watching a whole multitude of key areas on a machine: OS integrity, actions being performed on the device, network connections being established, excuse me, processes being created, manipulated. These are things that we need to be able to monitor and track through in order to give clear protection. Sounding complicated? Well, it is. When we look at all the data, the EDR sounds great, understand the concept about why we need to be addressing the unknown compared to the known. But how easy is it to implement? Well, fortunately, we can deliver this a single solution that can cater for everything. But more importantly, this is all done through a very clean, intuitive console that basically takes the complexity out of security. Now, we are the experts. We know what we're doing. You can just get on with your day, and we can deliver that as a platform for you. So what I'll do, I want to start off the session by giving you a kind of a broad perspective of what's going on out there, and the necessities needed to be able to deliver a security suite. But I want to show you actually how it looks and how it works to a degree. So first of all, let me bring up my console. Bear me a second. I'll let time out. Sorry, wrong screen. There we go. Okay. So Adaptive Defense 360 is a web-based management portal. We install the protection on the endpoints locally, so it's a sticky product. No matter where your machines go, they're always protected, and more importantly, you've always got visibility and control over what's going on with the security on those endpoints. So to get access to the portal, you simply go to the URL, put in your login details, and access the console. So in here, I'm just going to go into my AD360 console. Give me 1 second. Okay. And this is how it looks. Like I said, very clean and intuitive interface. Now I'm just going to focus on the EDR side of things initially. But as you'll be able to see, there's other functions and features within this console. So what I'm seeing here is my estate view. I can see all the machines that I've got protection installed and running on. I can see whether they're up to date, are they communicating, and also more importantly, what's happening on those endpoints. So we have our EDR dashboard at the top, along with our traditional based antivirus down the bottom. The way that we configure and control the protection on the endpoint is through policies. So how do we define those policies? Well, first of all, you make sure the protection's installed. So you can go to computers, add computers, download the installer. You can deploy this through any kind of software delivery platform you might have, and the machines appear in the console. But then we want to control the way the protection's working on them. So under settings, I'm just going to go to my workstations and servers section, go into one of my policies. And as you can see, this is a hybrid product. This is EPP and EDR. So I have got my traditional based antivirus within here. I've got my firewall. I've got device control. And I've also got web access control. So these are what I'd refer to as like the traditional types of modules, the things you expect to see in an endpoint security product. Now we want to focus on the next generation of protection, and this appears under the advanced protection section. So we have different modes that we can operate in on the endpoint: audit, hardening, and lock. Now audit mode, this is not a proactive protection mode. It's watching the telemetry on the endpoint, it's logging that telemetry, but it's actually not blocking anything. The default mode within here is hardening. And the hardening mode prevents the execution of unknowns if they've been externally sourced from your endpoint. So imagine your machine there, you're downloading files, opening attachments, accessing things from network shares. Those are all external sources. And if your machine tries to run an unknown that is coming from those sources, in hardening mode, it will block it. The best mode to be in is lock mode, because this will allow you to block the execution of all unknowns, regardless of where they manifest from, both externally from the system or from the local file system itself. And just to be clear, I'm talking about unknowns. Now, clarify what an unknown is again. On your machine there, you run a program. That program or application or process or whatever it might be will fall into one of three categories. It's good, which means we know what it is and we trust it and we watch it. Malware, so it's known bad. So good, the bad, and then the unknown. And it's the unknown that carries all the risk. Why systems get breached? Because your EPP detections don't know about it. So we have the mechanism to identify the unknowns and react to them. So how this practically looks from an endpoint's perspective is, let me share with you a virtual machine. Okay. So I'm just going to log into the local admin console on this machine, and I'm going to switch off the EDR technology. So that's now disabled. This is in essence a EPP traditional based antivirus product running on this device now. Now I'm going to create a new payload on this machine. So a new piece of malware that has never been seen before. So down here, just going to create this tool quickly. I'm going to create one sample. In this instance, I'm going to create an executable. I'm going to create it, and I'm going to have the system run it automatically. So when you're a user, you would have no visibility or control over this. And we saw there, it was very quick, a little box popped up. That's basically the execution in this sample of that unknown running. I'll do it again quickly. There you go. This box appears. Basically, that payload, that file, was allowed to run. If this was malware, it's got off and done what it was going to do now. It's encrypting your data, stealing your credentials, sitting in the background, not doing anything, but just watching and logging what you're doing. Whatever its intentions, it's been allowed to run. Now let's change that around. Let's do that now with the EDR technology enabled. So I'll switch that back on and we'll repeat the process. Just to create one example, file, executable again, click on start. Now instead what happens is the EDR technology is reacted. It's identified an unknown and reacted to it. Now, this is one thing you probably become knowledgeable about as you move along. EDR technology is not consistent. Everyone has got a different take on how they approach this problem. We're not doing virtualization in the endpoint, sandboxing and determining whether that process running is bad or not, because that can be risky. Malware can be environmentally aware where it's running. Alternatively, we're not doing like contextual behavioral monitoring and reacting to it after the fact. And what I mean by that is, oh, look, this program's now encrypting data. I don't like that. Let's try and terminate that process and roll the system back to a clean state. That is risky. You're letting something run. So the Panda Adaptive Defense 360 approach is pre-execution blocking. I identify an unknown, denied, not allowed to run. So we see these blocks appear. You know, if you're an admin, you can suppress these pop-ups appearing on the endpoint. But this is where all the service comes into play. We're just looking at a detection on an endpoint, okay? What's actually going on behind the scenes? Now, when I was going through the slides, I was talking about all the telemetry that's been obtained. 1,000 events per device, per machine, the network connections being established, massive amounts of data. From a user's perspective, they don't see any of that. If they're vigilant enough, they can see a system tray icon showing that the protection is running. That protection is doing all that log capturing and analysis in the background. From a user's perspective, they just get on with their working day. But when an item gets blocked, this is where the service element comes into play. So I'll move this out of the way, go back to my console. So first off, you know, if you've got alerts configured within your deployment, you'll be getting notifications when these things get blocked. When you look in the console itself, if I go to status security, go back to that EDR dashboard view, within here I have a section called currently blocked programs being classified. So what actually happens is when an unknown gets detected on an endpoint, it blocks it. So no foothold is established. But that endpoint actually then notifies the console, uploads that payload to the Adaptive Defense platform, where it goes through a classification process. And this is where cloud computing, the evolution of cloud computing, really has helped the situation. We've got more power, very sophisticated machine learning, using TensorFlows, the data analytics that we pull in from the endpoint to determine a result. This item in here is an unknown. It is going through the mill. We can see which machine that it's run on, or tried to run on, who was trying to run it, where it was potentially sourced from, but it's blocked. It's not allowed to run. The platform will deliver the verdict. Is it good or is it bad? Now, you do have the ability to override the system. We don't dictate to you what the ultimate controlling element is of these unknowns. But what we're doing here is we're managing the risk. This machine never had this program on it before. Adaptive Defense has identified it, reacted to it, blocked it, submitted it for classification, and it will deliver the verdict. This is completely autonomous. And that's a really important point. We're not deferring decisions to the IT admin teams, the person responsible for managing the estate, who may not have the necessary time and resources or experience to make decisions about these items. Leave it to the security vendor, leave it to the experts, and we'll do that all for you automatically. Even if you made the rash decision of going into the console and saying, oh, that thing that got blocked, which I downloaded, I really want to run that. So you can go in here and you can unblock that item. Big red button. Do you really want to do this? And you can override the system. And yes, that item can be run. But the thing to note is, regardless of the mode that you're running in, maybe you're not running in the lock mode I mentioned, but you're running in just the audit mode, or you're going in as a technician into the console and you're overriding these blocks within here. Adaptive Defense classifies everything. It's 100% attestation. We see everything, we classify everything. And we need to do that. There should be no unknowns, goods or bads, nothing in between. Let's manage that risk and handle it. So this classification process is automatic. It's pretty quick. 99.98% of the unknown submissions are actually automatically classified by the platform with no intervention. That 0.02% is where the system can't deliver a clear verdict, and it requires someone from the malware labs to jump in and throw human eyes over the detection. But the ultimate result is it good or bad? Good items, once classified, will be allowed to run. Malware or bad items, depending on the detection type, will drop into the malware, pup, or exploit sections of the console. So it depends on the type of detection. This EDR is not just payload based. We have a layered approach to security. You have the anti-exploit technology in here as well. And we're watching and managing threats from a multitude of layers and reacting to them. But what's interesting about this, if you did make a decision to let malware run, so if I look at my malware list within the console, I can see from my matrix list view, these machines, these classifications, these items, which are classified as malware. On the side here, I can see, have things been allowed to be run? Have they accessed data? Have they made network connections? So we start seeing some insight as to the telemetry that is being logged on an endpoint. Okay, yes, I know it's been run, but also it's made network connections. If we then dive deeper into these detections and we look at the activity, you get the malware life cycle. Obviously, this is if you're letting things run. Please don't. But what we're able to do is, because of all the telemetry we capture from the endpoint, all those different categories and volume of events, the system stitches that all together into a breach report. And we can see in chronological order the chain of events of what's happened in a situation. If I click on the activity graph view, I get a graphical interpretation of that same infection with all the different event points associated to it. And along the bottom, I've got my timeline, and I can actually play through this. I can see my original payload. I can see that it was subsequently executed, where it then made some registry key changes, started making network connections, running additional processes, and you can tell the whole breach through on an endpoint. You would never see this level of analysis appearing in an EPP product. It's basically detecting, when we talk about EPP, it's matching that file to known patterns with something in between. Is it malware or not? it doesn't work 100%, and the necessity for EDR is key, because otherwise this sort of thing happens. Obviously, this is a bad day. If I'm looking at someone's console and I'm saying, oh, look, this is your file server, I can see all the data being touched, all the document formats, they're being encrypted. You can see it. It looks very pretty. You can print it out and put it on the wall as a nice spirograph printout. But that's a bad day. That's falling foul, a victim of a breach. The whole point of EDR is to prevent that from happening. And that's what we should see within here. Really, if you're using the product correctly, you only see one thing: item detected, blocked, submitted, classified automatically, and verdict, the verdict outcome, which means for the businesses, they could just get on with their working day. Haven't got to contact the DPO. Haven't got to go back to backups, send people home, even though they're at home already, restoring data, whatever it might be. We need to take control back of our networks, and this EDR technology is the way of going forwards and achieving that. So I hope that makes sense when we just compare the EPP and the EDR. There's just one other thing I was going to touch on quickly within here, just to give you a bit of further data insights. When I look at this breach, this malware allowed to be run, I'm seeing the activity related to this particular single instance on a machine. Okay, lots of telemetry data, but it's specifically related to this particular malware execution. Now, what about all the other telemetry we captured from the endpoint? Now, when we're using our EDR technology, the Adaptive Defense 360, you can actually get access to all that raw data. So if you run already your own SIEM system, you have a threat hunting platform being utilized by a SOC, or perhaps you've just got a team that you want to enable to get visibility of that data, we can actually do all that through directly within the console. So in this particular instance, I've got access to something called the Advanced Visualization tool. If I go into there, it takes me to a separate tab, and this is basically our mini SIEM. The telemetry we're capturing from all of our endpoints is being fed into this system. And this isn't just the malware executions and the blocks that are appearing, but everything that is being detected on the endpoint. So if I go down to the advanced reporting section here quickly, if I go to application control, within here, I'm looking at the last week. The logs actually go back a year within the console. And what I can see within here is everything that's being run. This is big data insights. I can see people running Google. I can see which application it is and which machines have been running that application. On this widget view here, the bigger the bubble, the more presence it's had in that last week's period. But we also do a reverse of that. We can also see the most least frequently used applications as well. We can show you bandwidth consumption, sending and receiving of network traffic per process. In the last week, someone's been using, 1.86 gig of data received by Spotify. Go into there, here's that machine. Special applications and tools within here, it's one of my favorite sections. In here, you can start dipping your toe into things like living off the land. Legitimate processes or applications that could be getting used in nefarious ways. Who's running scripts within your network? Who those machines are, who those users are that are running those processes. What remote access tools are being used, which admin tools or sys-internal tools being executed. Legitimate tools that are used by threat actors to scan, recon, make changes to the machines that they've got access to once they're in your estate. Now these widgets, these are graphical interpretation of the raw data. If I go up to data search within here, go to the ops table. So I was really quick there, sorry. Let me go back. In here, these are all the different event tables that we populate from the endpoint. If I go into one here, you can see it in its raw format. You can see on this date and time, this user on this machine launched this application within here, and any parameters from like a command line. You can see people running PowerShell HTTP requests, deleting shadow copies, the things that you would probably see if you're a threat actor operating within the network. We have raw command line data being logged from the endpoints, being fed into our SIEM, your SIEM, which you can then create alerts and actions off the back of. Obviously, this might look overwhelming, and it is. There's so much data in here that you need to be able to make sense of it. But you don't have to. Now, really, from a core perspective, we do all that for you anyway. Now, we're detecting the unknown, reacting, blocking, classifying them, all through a very clean, simple interface. But more and more businesses are evolving to looking at implementing SIEMs, taking advantage of threat hunting service providers or doing it themselves. And in order to do that, you need to get the data. And we can provide that through Panda's adaptive defense technology. So when we look at that, you think, gosh, there's a lot going on within the endpoint. Surely that's going to have an impact to the business. Now, like I said at the beginning, all of our technology is homegrown. And we've always focused on efficiency and a light footprint on the endpoint. Now, we still support Windows XP with this product suite. So rest assured, if you install this on your endpoints, performance isn't going to become an issue. CPU, RAM usage, network traffic, we're efficient and optimized the way that the endpoints are protected and that information is delivered to ensure that businesses just can get on, or users can get on with their working day. So I wanted to kind of focus on the EPP versus EDR. Hopefully that clarifies some things within there. To reiterate the two other points that I just want people to be aware of: patch, and RDP access. If you're using that, please take that into consideration. And also make sure you are looking to complement your endpoint security with EDR technology. And remember that there's a lot of other layers that need to be addressed within a business as well. The more layers you put in place, the better you are protected. So it did sound complicated, but hopefully that console made it a bit clearer about how easy it is to manage and just get on with your working day. Obviously, as part of the Panda, the Watchguard Panda suite, we have other modules. Now, we've just talked about the Adaptive Defense 360 platform. Now, when you have this system, you've got the ability to add in modules like patch management, all managed through the same console, data control, full encryption, as well as already tapping into a threat hunting service that sits above that. If you're using Adaptive Defense 360, our threat hunting teams will actually flag up whether you're under a brute force attack, and they'll inform you to say this machine is under attack. So let's prevent that from happening first before it becomes a problem. So thank you for your time there. I hope that was useful. If there's any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Neil, are you still with me?
Certainly am, yeah.
Brilliant.
Great. Thank you for that. Just toggling the videos back on, chaps. There we go. Great. Thanks for that, Tony. Neil, any questions to add to that? Watching Tony's presentation.
Well, I mean, I think there's so many different things to consider, but it's one of the reasons why we partner with Watchguard and their Panda products in particular is because it's such a comprehensive solution and a product that really does help address a lot of the real world issues that we face right now. So, yeah, look forward to hearing hopefully a few questions, and hopefully we can give you some answers to those.
And just to kick things off. Question here: how different has the last 6 months been to the previous 6 months? I mean, probably very would be the word, but I'll let you pick that one up.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things have changed. Clearly, I think with the whole advent of more mobile and flexible working, lots of staff are now working from home, and of course, it does mean that perhaps the firewalls and the security prevention that they had in place in buildings isn't quite as prevalent or adequate enough to support that. And I think as Tony touched upon, and I know one of the comments I noticed that there does seem to be an increase in threats during lockdowns since we've seen. So it's really important that if it hasn't been looked or assessed, that businesses do look at what they have in place and see if it is suitable moving forward.
Yeah, to add anything to that, Tony?
Yeah, I'd say since lockdown kicked in, I've never been busier. It's been insanely busy, and it's predominantly down to businesses trying to adapt to the changing environment. And we're putting everybody at home, but we need to maintain the security on them. And by having a web-based platform with control over the endpoint security, device control, web access control, it empowers them to ensure that the users are protected whilst remote, but also maintains that visibility. And obviously we've seen increases in spam, phishing techniques, piggybacking the COVID situation. And it's, you just got to be there to react to it.
And have you seen, I don't know if it's changed, it's too early to say, September's only a couple of weeks in, but have you seen a move just in the interactions you have, a move back into offices, or do you literally think, I mean, a lot of companies that I've spoken to literally push that decision back to next year. It's not even a question to have at the moment, but have you heard different?
Yeah, I'll just take that one. We've seen different organisations to follow different practices in terms of how they're using their offices now. There certainly seems to be many of our customers who now are using their offices to a certain extent, but certainly nowhere near the levels that they were pre lockdown. So it might be a case of more of a hybrid type of approach where there is still some office attendance, but a lot of that is still remote. So it might be a couple of days in the office, a couple of days at home, which I think does suit a lot of companies because it still leaves that social interaction, but that without the pressure of having everybody into the office at the same time. And I think also on the back of that, I think there is an element of how things have adapted and how the work-life balance for many has been, really brought forward in terms of that ability to have that flexible working. So I think moving forward, I think we will see a lot more of that. I don't think there'll be a time where everybody goes back to the office all the time. I think there will definitely be more of this hybrid type working moving forward.
Yeah. Tony?
Yeah, I think it's the same really. We've seen some businesses get back into the office. A lot of people are keen to get back in there, but most people have been pushed back. For us, don't need to come back in until next year. To be honest, it doesn't make any difference. We're cloud first. Everything we do through is the cloud. All our CRM, protection, collaboration. I could be anywhere in the world and I'm still part of the same unit. But I think what businesses are going to be mindful of is to ensuring they can maintain the agility. We're working through this situation. Hopefully it's going to come to an end. But what happens when it comes back? We've got to look at long-term solutions that we can just have already enabled, so we don't have any downtime and we can just be productive, constantly. So we're seeing a lot of people are moving from on-premise solutions, be it traditional based AV, server-based systems, to cloud-based solutions, because it just leads massively to that. Works all really well as long as you've got an internet connection.
Yeah.
Hopefully the internet doesn't go down.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Tony. I think that's one of the things that we do need to be mindful of, is that things could change again. I mean, the start this year, I don't think anybody came into 2020 expecting that by March that we'd all be sitting at home, not being able to go into an office, and we don't know what's around the corner. So having that ability to be agile, to have that flexibility, and have systems that allow business to continue to operate are really important. And certainly, between ourselves and our partners like Watchguard Panda, we can come up with ideas to help you do that.
Yeah, like you say, nobody knows what's around the corner. Nobody foresaw the rule of 6 kicking in, did they? Literally just dropped in. And this whole process, people working from home, and I agree. I think it's going to be a hybrid model. Has been massively accelerated by the pandemic. Who knows how many years it would have taken to bring about something like that. Comment from Ben, you might want to comment back on. Crazy to think some companies are still using XP. They must be more vulnerable compared to W10.
Yeah, sure. So there's not many, but there's a few. Typically what I see is manufacturing, when they've invested massively into systems and applications that are operating machine floor production devices. To replace that system with something current will cost millions. So we want to maintain those old systems. So yeah, it's XP's around, the Windows 7's still around, but fortunately we can still protect them. And we'll always maintain that legacy support, because we can, and we appreciate that not everyone can shift to the latest version of an operating system. It's not always possible.
Yeah. Kelly Best says, I think hacks have increased since lockdown. I had my Spotify account hijacked last week. Loads of attempts on my Google account and Facebook. Nightmare having to reset all my passwords.
Yeah. Hacks are always going on. We're at home, we're online probably more than we were before. We're clicking on more links. We're more curious about different content, and people know that's the situation. So obviously it's best practice. Use complex passwords. Implement multi-factor authentication. Now you can do this from all the consumer cloud-based solutions. Now use a password manager. There's lots of things you can do. Check the privacy settings on your social media applications. There's just so much you can do. But the thing is how many applications are out there? Are we competent enough to know where we need to go into those individual products to know what I've got to be switching off? So it's a minefield, but complex passwords, MFA, and you'll be in a stronger position.
Question, which I've heard myself ask many times actually. Why do I need antivirus software for my Mac?
Well,
You've heard that one before.
Go back a few years. As a security vendor, we always focused on market share, which operating system was predominantly used out there, and Windows was massive. Obviously, Mac always had its place, and we always focused on additionally where the threats were coming from. Now, it's a misconception. Macs don't get infected. There is malware out there for Windows, Mac, Linux, Android. Now, they're all potentially vulnerable operating systems, but the threat actors would predominantly focus on their low-hanging fruit. What's the dominant OS out there? And there's Windows. But as the other OSs become more popular, there may be a shift. Hoston. So everything's vulnerable. Yeah, Mac protection
Indeed.
definitely.
Yeah. Another question that's come through on the tab here, which again you get. I'll position chill, position all of them too. Why would I pay for antivirus program when I could download a free version?
Well, you get what you pay for at the end of the day.
Great answer.
So if you're paying for something for free, how are they maintaining infrastructure? Where are they getting all their information and development coming from? If it's not paid for, where's that investment into evolution of a product? Also, where's the technical support? Because technical products result in technical questions. And if you need to speak to somebody, you typically don't get that with free products. Yeah, you get what you pay for ultimately. Free AV has its place, and if you're just a home user, then it's that bottom line for you. You've got mortgage and gas bills to pay, so you've got some. At least you've got something. Not having any protection is where the problems lie. But for businesses, you've got to take it seriously.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think the title of this webinar kind of sort of really is what the whole point of this is. Your antivirus enough? You may well invest in a product that doesn't necessarily tick all the boxes that Tony talked about. So if you're looking for something that could be really robust and gives you the best chance of fighting off some of these attacks and hackers, then it really is important to look at a suitable product. And we strongly believe that Panda is the best out there.
Yeah. I think I probably know the answer to this one that's come through, but I'll position it. How do I know I've got the right antivirus program? I'll probably say watch the replay of this webinar, but I'll let you answer that. And I'll say, any last questions, anyone? Because I know we have run over, but thank you for staying with us.
So how do you know you've got the right antivirus program?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Firstly, is it Panda? If it's not, then you haven't got the right one.
There you go.
Okay.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, you've got to look at the content of a product. What is it facilitating in regards to protection modules? If it is just signature-based antivirus, like I highlighted, it's the basic. It's the entry-level, protection. Technology, methods, techniques have evolved, and you need a product that caters for all of that. So you should go for a tech exercise. You should do your due diligence, look at the product suites out there, look at how you've been breached previously, because most businesses have been a victim. And I understand how that happened. If your current AV didn't handle it, is it good enough? I think you got the answer there.
Yeah, I've just put last questions, folks. Got a couple more. If you're happy to answer them, chaps, I'll position them over to you.
Yeah, sure.
Brilliant. So I've downloaded a new antivirus program. Do I need to uninstall the old one before I run it? Good question, probably.
I would. Having two competing AV solutions on a machine, they run the risk of fighting with one another. So two applications, both consuming resources, and ultimately both performing the same action, looking at changes on the file system. So you might have one AV checking a file you've just downloaded and said, okay, is it safe? And then another AV says, oh, look, it's being accessed. Is that safe? And back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Only have one AV running on a machine and the performance will be a lot better.
Good answer. And last one, probably a good one to wrap up with, really, to kind of summarize what we've done today is what features should you look for in an antivirus program?
So obviously traditional elements, real-time AVE, ensuring that AV product is always delivering visibility and control, because there are still a lot of legacy systems out there. And what I mean by that are solutions that reside on premise. So when you're, especially in today's day and age, when you've got your laptops, they pick up and go home, the admin in the office says, well, I don't know what's going on with that machine now. It's outside my network. So you need something that gives you that visibility. Obviously, EDR, without a doubt. But all the other key things, web access control, web filtering, login, prevention, classifications, device control. Think about the different ways malware could be introduced into the business or into the endpoint, and look for the tick box: email protection, web protection, file system protection, next generation, firewall capabilities. So the list can go on and on. But it's typically down to the business having their specific requirements about what they are looking for.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, look, thank you very much indeed. Neil, anything you'd like to wrap up for us today?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Just as a final thought from me, I know there's a lot of information that we've gone through today. Some of the questions, hopefully, we've been able to answer. But if you have any further questions, we're happy to have a chat. We have a great relationship with our partners, and in particular around this area, it is such a minefield. So reach out, get in touch with us, and we're happy to book some time and chat with how we can help you.
Awesome. And everybody who's registered to watch this webinar, if you can be watching it in your own time and you haven't been on it live with us today, or you've been watching this on social media and you'd like to have a follow-up, we will be sending an email to everybody who registered as well. So simply come back and you can register for the replay as well. That's going to be available to watch in literally about 60 seconds once I press end broadcast here. So thank you all very much indeed. Thank you for joining us today. What's the best and easiest place that people can find out more information, chaps?
So if anybody wants to visit our website, it's kuipertech.co.uk, or you can email sales@kuipertech.co.uk, or you can find us on LinkedIn. So easy to find, Kuiper, Kuiper technology, and you can reach us through that as well.
Brilliant. I've just typed up the website there as well. And as I say, everybody will get an email follow-up with the relevant links as well. So thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Beth, for posting up there as well, and everybody else who's just been watching, and those of you who are going to watch this on the replay as well. So thanks very much. See you again.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Cheers.